Welcome, everyone. It is a cold, blustery day here on the campus of Notre Dame. It feels like 22 degrees out. So, my wife, who is from Brazil, mixes up metaphors. I just learned a few years ago that she thought that the wind chill factor was the windshield factor. And so, had to explain to her the difference between the two, not any vernacular that she grew up with in Brazil. But we have two students, as many of you know, here on campus. Our son Louis is a senior, and our daughter Katya is a sophomore. Carmen and I felt that they could have followed the COVID protocols a little bit better this past semester, and so we volunteered them this week. They might say they're volunteering, but we actually volunteered them to work with the grounds crew this week. It's cold. The snow is blowing today. They got up early to go out there and work with the team. They're actually pulling ivy off of the buildings to kind of preserve the brick. It's probably the only blue collar work that these kids have done in their lives, but they're learning a lot, and it's a wonderful experience for them. And they've actually come back each night and marveled about the Notre Dame grounds crew. The landscaping crew here at Notre Dame you could make the argument, are the best department on campus. What they do day in and day out throughout the year to make the flowers look gorgeous, and to trim all the hedges, to cut the lawns, to move the snow as they're doing right now, and to salt the paths. They're an absolutely amazing team of mighty few group of people who, like the loaves and fishes, it's amazing what they get done. And it reminded me of a quote that I wanted to share from Father Robert Griffin. Many of you know him. He used to always walk around campus, a legendary figure, with his dog, Darby O'Gill, which if he had a number of different dogs, but they always were called Darby O'Gill, which the acronym comes out to dog. And he'd walk around with his cane, and he wrote a weekly column in the Observer called Letters to a Lonely God. And it was one of my favorite. In fact, there's a collection in the bookstore of these beautiful essays. But he talked about the workers, like the landscape workers, and he said, Father Robert Griffin said, if you want to belong, you have to learn the myth. You have to wrap your heart and mind in it. You have to believe that the merest rocks of the place tell a story. Behind the myth is a cast of thousands working in loyalty for the Notre Dame of their dreams, in a love affair that lasts a lifetime. So hats off to you and the landscaping crew, those who clean the buildings and work to improve the facilities day in and day out. You are quiet heroes in this place, and a couple of my children are really privileged to get to work along your side this week and see the sacrifices that you make on behalf of Notre Dame students and the Notre Dame family every day. It's my distinct pleasure now to introduce you one of the terrific leaders here at Notre Dame. His name is Bryan Ritchie. He is the Cathy and John Martin Associate Provost for Innovation, Vice President here at the university. He came to Notre Dame in early 2017, and in his role, Bryan leads the Idea Center initiative, and he coordinates all university-wide initiatives around innovation, commercialization, and entrepreneurship. He has his MBA from BYU. He has his PhD from Emory University. For 11 years, he was a professor in political economy at Michigan State. And for 5 years prior to coming to Notre Dame, he was the associate vice president for research commercialization at the University of Utah. He has vast experience in the private sector, working for major corporations and also consulting and assisting with startups all across the country and world. I'll never forget, Bryan, that when the final courting process was there to try to bring you on board. Uh, there was a buzz here on campus that if we get this guy, he will be able to jumpstart the innovation programs here at Notre Dame. And it would be just a home run hire. And he has been just that and just continues to have an impact here at the university. So, Bryan, welcome. And maybe you could start things out and tell us a little bit about your background, anything personal or professional, and how ultimately we were able to attract you to Notre Dame.
I appreciate that introduction. It was very kind. And also, Merry Christmas to you and your family, and appreciate this opportunity to be together and talk for a minute. Yeah, as everyone probably is thinking, even though they might not say it out loud, they might think, what a schizophrenic background for this guy. Um, but I had a great experience doing commercialization at the University of Utah, and while there, realized that there was a tremendous opportunity for universities to really have impact. And I know we'll talk more about this as we go. But after I finished at the University of Utah, there were a number of universities that would call and talk about having us come and help them. And I say us because it was really a team effort that we had put together when we were at the University of Utah. But almost in every case, the university really wasn't interested in doing what it took. And I remember getting a call from Notre Dame saying, hey, we're interested in doing commercialization. Would you be willing to come out and take a look at it with us and think about this and come do it for us? And I told them what I thought it would take, which I had said to other universities. And I thought, okay, they said, thank you very much. They hung up, and I thought, okay, well, that'll be the last I hear from them. I got a call the next day from Tom Burrish, and everybody knows Tom. Tom said, hey, we're really serious about this. And when Notre Dame does something, we do it all the way. And we'd really like to have you come out and take a look at this with us and see what you think. And I said to him, and then I said to my wife when I hung up, I said, there is no way I'm living in South Bend. That is not going to happen. And if you look out at the weather right now, it's not hard to see why people say that, right?
Right.
But as Tom is so gifted at doing, he brought us out. He spent all the time talking to my wife and making her feel comfortable about being here. But what really sold us was the vision and the mission of the university, right? What really became apparent was that not only could Notre Dame do this, but Notre Dame wanted to do this, and they wanted to do it for the impact it would have, not just on the students and the faculty, which would be large, but also for the community, for their alums, for the world, for this ecosystem, about how it would integrate with everything else they were trying to do that would make this have the kind of impact that was possible. And that got me excited, right? I realized that this was going to go far beyond just a career move. This was going to be something that could be transformative and life-changing for lots of people around this whole operation.
Mm-hmm. And you've been a great mission fit too, Bryan, because you take the integration of faith and research and education, very seriously, and you have a long track record. And was that also an attraction for you?
Absolutely. For me, to be able to come to a place that really thinks holistically about that transformation, and certainly that's an important component for the education. But then if you say, well, what about for the research? What about for technology and the impact that this university might have on not only its local community, but a worldwide community? That becomes really, it's not just about, hey, could we create businesses or could we transform technologies? It would be, could we do this for the good of the whole, for the spiritual aspect, the faith component, and for the economic and social aspect of this as well. And that became a critical part of that mission driver that I was talking about.
So you lead the Idea Center, and you came up with the acronym, the Idea Center. Tell us a little bit about not only what the acronym stands for, but a little bit about the breadth and scope of the Idea Center and what it does.
Yeah. So really, the Idea Center was formed when the university decided that it was going to transform itself into a tier one research university. Most people know that for a long time, the University of Notre Dame was a very excellent teaching university. And this is probably going to be the legacy of John Affleck Graves and Tom Burrish and Father John in this transformation to a tier one research university. But as you start doing that, you realize that it's more than just identifying or discovering new technologies. It's also about how do we bring them to market? How do we get that from discovery all the way to the marketplace? Mm-hmm. And so the university went through a process of ideating around this and trying to figure out how they were going to do this. And many people might know of Tom Crotty and the Crotty Report and things that had been given as input into that process.
Tom Crotty, a Notre Dame trustee and a venture capitalist. Yeah.
That's right. And it got to the point where the university realized that we're going to have to create an operation that's capable of doing this. And so that was the genesis of this idea center, which if you think about innovation, de-risking, and economic acceleration, that's really what we're trying to do. And those are stages, right? If you think about, all right, we're going to ideate, we're going to discover, we're going to innovate. Then we've got to actually transform those innovations. We've got to de-risk. We've got to get it to a point where the market can take it. And then we got to accelerate that. And so we've created a mission at the Idea Center, which is let's unlock discoveries, let's fuel that genius, and let's advance the common good. Let's make sure that all of this has the impact that the university wants to have as this role from Notre Dame. So the university then looked and said, okay, well, we definitely have to do this for faculty. We want to do this for students. We want to have an economic impact for our community, and we want to do this for alums as well.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to briefly summarize the kind of the goal of the Idea Center, how would you encapsulate that? What would your elevator speech be for the Idea Center?
You know, it's one word, Lou. It's just impact. I mean, if you think about this, I'll tell you a quick story. It was a learning story for me that was kind of fun, but it put me in my place a little bit. But you know the "What Would You Fight For" videos,
sure,
and which are so inspiring and motivating. I made the mistake of asking someone at one time, how many of those have actually gone to market and had an impact in a way that you could actually trace, right? That you could actually measure. And the response I got was that none that they could think of, right? Now, that doesn't mean that they aren't important. They were very important. But the point is that if I'm going to do something and innovate and discover, I got to have an impact. It's got to get someplace. It's got to go someplace, right? Now, I'm sure that there have been many that have gone someplace since then, and we're working on those. But this is the cool part is it's like, okay, great. Let's take this amazing discovery and name the industry: cancer research, social research, economic research. And let's take it all the way to where people can say, I know how to use that. I know how to put that into my life. And by the way, faculty, that's what they want, right? It's like, great, I got a book published, but what I really want is people using my innovation. I want it to be valuable for something. And so I'd say that's what it is. It's impact for faculty, it's impact for students, impact on the community, but how do we translate our discoveries into impact?
Yeah. It's amazing because I've asked people for an elevator speech before or in a concise way to share their mission, and people really struggle to get that down to an elevator speech. And I don't think I've had any one person one up me and just say, I can bring this down to one word. So, it's going to be a short elevator ride with you.
That's right.
I love
one floor. It's a one floor.
Impact. Yeah. And, this is how universities make themselves meaningful. 6% of the world's population has a college degree. If we're not asking ourselves every day to a place like Notre Dame, how are we making ourselves relevant to the other 94%? Then why exist? But it all comes down to impact. And I love how you've made this real, and this commercialization process makes a ton of sense. So how do the faculty use the Idea Center? How do they reach out to you, or do you reach out to them? How does it work? And you already said that they need you, but how does it actually work?
You know, this is a great question, and there's a little bit of complexity in this, in that not every faculty member really knows or understands what's possible in terms of this impact and how their research might be used to change lives in a very positive way. So sometimes the faculty knows this, they've done it before, they come directly to us. But a lot of times we go to the faculty and have to explain and say, hey, here's what's possible. You've now had this tremendous invention. Again, it might be in any number of fields. It could be in drug discovery, or it could be in, in economics or whatever. And then we say, let us help you. Let us work together to create a mechanism so that this can have impact, so it can change lives. And so that, and that might be through a nonprofit, it might be through a for-profit, but in a way that we can de-risk that technology and move it from where it is to a point where someone can actually use it and have it be able to change their life. And so then we just bring them into our process and work together very collaboratively to move that through those processes. So lots of things you can imagine. For example, does the technology work at scale? Can we find the right funding for it? Can we put a team around it that can help to test customers and customer acceptance and all of these various things that will make us successful in that area? So it's very rigorous and process oriented, but it's about saying to the faculty, here's the next step to bring your idea to impact.
So if I'm a faculty member and I have a new technology that I'm pioneering, or some other kind of breakthrough, you would perhaps reach out to me if I didn't take the initiative, begin that discussion, and then would you help me find maybe a startup CEO and
Absolutely.
other people? To give us a little bit more concrete example.
Yeah, so we've got a really interesting technology from one of our very gifted faculty in chemistry, who has created an invention that literally can help cure cancer. And it has so much promise. But when you take that technology in its early form and you say you take it out to a pharma company and you say, hey, look what we have, they'll say something like, okay, has a lot of promise, but there's a lot of risk in it, and we need to prove it out. Can you get it a little further down the road before we're ready to take it on? And so what we would say to that faculty member is, okay, let's put out a plan that where we can improve the technology so that we can build the technology. At the same time, we can start to build a company and a team. So we can start to look for a CEO, we can start to look for a board of directors, we can start to find investment. And by the way, it's also a wonderful example of where we can put students to work and say, hey, let's get the students involved in this so that they can help us de-risk the technology, the intellectual property, the market. So think about what the student is getting now. The student's getting a chance to go out and learn firsthand. What are the issues around this in order to bring it to marketplace? What are the tasks that need to be solved? What are the things that need to happen so that they're getting a feel for this process as well? The faculty member, as you know, can participate, but can also go back and do more research on their own. So we can take and do some of that work for them. And then once we get it to a certain point, then the company can come back in and say, okay, perfect. Now it's been, we have data on the technology, we have data from the customer, we have maybe clinical data or animal data, and we've moved this further along. Now we're ready to take it, and we'll take it the rest of the way to the market. So we're kind of covering that gap. We call it, if you think about this, this is the chasm of chaos, right? I mean, we've got solutions looking for problems. You've got technologies that don't really know what the intellectual property is. And so you just have to answer some of those questions.
Right. So I have this theory, and you can disprove it, readily if you'd like, that the reason why your role exists here on campus is because, quite frankly, the students have demanded it. Yeah. More and more of our students are not content to take the lucrative investment banking jobs or to go out into the consulting world or to work for some of the top corporations. They have an idea. They have this entrepreneurial spirit where they want to engage in a startup themselves. They want to see if they can bring to market. And they have demanded from us more opportunity, more curricular innovations that they can engage in. And that is what is, in fact, given rise, not just on our campus, but on campuses across the country for innovation platforms like the Idea Center. How are students engaged in the Idea Center at Notre Dame and in the myriad of ways? Give us some examples.
I love that you asked this question, Lou, because I think in some ways, I think Notre Dame, a lot of times people look at it and say, oh, this is the place I go to become a doctor, or this is the place I go to work on Wall Street, or whatever the case might be. Just as a number that many people might find interesting, we have this long break between our end of our fall semester and the beginning of our winter or spring semester. And the university created opportunities for students to engage during that period of time, and they could apply in
Hmm.
various places to work. We had 650 students apply to work at the Idea Center in this interim period of time between the fall and the start of the next semester. I'm amazed at how many of these students want this kind of experience to say, hey, not only do I want to try to learn how to start a company, but I have ideas and I want them to have impact. And I
Hmm.
want to do something in the world that changes lives. And what better place to do this? I don't want to knock working for food service or the library. That's maybe great, but a lot of these students are like, man, I could go do something that really would change the world.
Hmm.
That's exciting. So I think that we've got so many opportunities. In fact, I'll give you a quote. We had a student who worked here for a while who's now gotten a job at a company in Silicon Valley. And I'll just quote, he said, I can't underline this enough about how applicable my experience in the lab was in getting my job. He said, the work I did in the lab was arguably one of the most important things I did during my time at Notre Dame. Just this experiential learning to apply what they're getting in the classroom to real world opportunities is just really transformative. And we've got a lot of people to thank that we could do this. We have a wonderful advisory council that has provided tons of resources. Mari Lynn and Tom Burrish before her have been tremendously supportive of getting these students engaged, but it's just been super transformative.
Yeah. So all of this sounds good and well, but are you really having any impact? Are you having successes? When you look from kind of the faculty and student driven ideas, and then that ecosystem with the alumni and parents and others who invest in these, can you give us some numbers? Can you give us some sense of the impact? And then from there, I want to hear a few examples.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been doing this now for about 3.5 years. We just started our 117th company in that period of time. We were able to, as you know, raise some investment opportunity money that we could put to these. We've had over 700 students engage with us in one form or another. We've got 50 master students every year that we work through a STEAM. We'll talk a little bit, I know, in a minute on courses.
Hmm.
We've engaged with alumni and community companies that we've been able to create and develop. We've been able to license technologies from the faculty, both to existing companies and to new startups. And as you know, this is very much a flywheel, right? I
Hmm.
mean, there's deep network effects here. I mean, if you think about it, if we're really engaging the student body effectively, they're going to talk about that to their friends and on social media. That's going to impact what kind of students we can recruit. What kind of faculty we can recruit is going to be impacted by the work that we do. The way that alums engage with us and the value that we can help create for alums, the way we can help transform the community. All of these things have feedback loops, right? And they start to generate and build on themselves. And so, we've got all of these things that we're putting in place that are starting this process. But I think as we go, we're going to see more and more of this impact as we go.
So I have to say that first of all, I'm blown away with 117 startups, 117 companies that you've started up in this short time, and more of this I know is on the tail end because as you were kind of putting in the infrastructure and hiring the people, it was smaller numbers at the start. So this is only going to grow exponentially going forward. But one of the great tangible signs of your success was now I hate to lose, especially when we're trying to recruit talent and we were recruiting somebody I thought would be a superb fundraiser, and we lost this person a little over a year ago because this candidate chose to become the CEO of one of your companies, and I thought, this is great. If we're going to lose somebody, uh, this is the best loss that we can chalk up to a new startup, and with all of the risk, but also the promise that lies in that. Can you give us what are some of your favorite examples? What are some of the stories of startups that have come either through the faculty side or the student side or elsewhere
Yeah.
that you're really proud of?
I'll tell you a couple of stories. I mentioned this technology coming from the faculty that is using immunotherapy and T cell technologies that really literally could have a major impact on curing cancer, which
On
I
all
mean,
different cancers or particular?
all different kinds of cancers, solid cancers, blood cancers. It's just a tremendous technology. We have another technology that we have brand new wireless discovery that's come out of the university that actually allows us to understand transformations on a subject matter without any sensors on that person or in that area. So we can tell heart rate and respiration, for example, with no sensor on the human body. We can get to water content in the body without any sensor on the body. So think about what that might mean for if you think about congestive heart failure or insomnia or monitoring children. There's just so many applications that could really change the world. And then, some of the stuff the students are doing is just unbelievable. Some people, it's funny when we say, hey, we're doing student ventures, and they're like, oh, great, you're doing an app that delivers pizza and beer to the dorms. I'm like, no, you don't understand. We got students that are changing the way that amputees learn how to re-walk, right? We're working with students who are changing the way that we do everything from insurance to advertising to healthcare. It is unbelievable what our students are doing, Lou. In fact, we were so encouraged by what the students were doing that we put 2 new programs in place. One we call Race to Revenue, which is an internship over the summer, where we actually bring in 10 teams of students to say, take your idea from concept to market in 10 weeks, and we'll connect you with everything that you need. It's amazing what these students are coming up with and being able to do. And in fact, if I had the resources, I'd run 10 more of those teams at the same time. The demand is super high, and we've been able to come up with amazing things with those students. In fact, of the support that we're giving to new companies, half of it is going to student ventures, just to give you an idea of how good they are.
That's terrific. They say that the old adage is that discovery is the highest form of learning. And you're providing the crucible in which these students can engage in that discovery process, which is huge. But on top of that, you mentioned you're offering curricular innovations through the Idea Center. Can you tell us about some of the courses you've implemented and how's the student response been?
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that too. And just to go back to your other point, just really quickly, this idea of a hashtag bold fail, this idea that this is really the place in a safe environment where students can come and just try stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned if they fail. In fact, I hope they kind of do fail, at least once or twice, because you learn so much from those failures.
Yeah.
And this we've tried to wind into our courses and into our education. So I talked about, we have this Masters of Entrepreneurship where we have said, bring all your STEM capable students to us and we'll teach them how to build companies and be an entrepreneur and how to fail in an environment and learn through real experience so that they can leave and succeed. And that has just been a tremendously successful initiative, this STEAM program right now, starting to grow in recognition, starting to grow in the numbers of students. For every student, we have a capstone real world experience project that they work on. And almost half of those are from corporations outside the university. Then we also have a minor in entrepreneurship. And both of these, by the way, are open to students across the university. You don't have to be a business student. You can be any kind of student to get into these. And we have almost 200 students now involved in our minor program.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd love to increase that number as well. I think the demand is there. It's just a matter of us bringing in the right resources and abilities in order to scale that. But all of these students are deeply connected with all of these projects we're working on.
Have you been impressed with the talent and the innovation of the students? I mean, you've been other places, and how does the Notre Dame students stack up?
It's just amazing, Lou. I mean, I was at two state universities before this, and I got to tell you that our students are head and shoulders above any students I've ever worked with at any university. I'm blown away by their talents and their abilities. Now, I will say that one of the things I think we really do add a lot of value is sometimes these students come in having never had an opportunity to fail. In fact, I had a conversation with a young woman. I
Yeah.
said, I'm so glad you're here at the Idea Center. We'll give you chances to fail. And she looked at me really weird and she said, I've never failed in my life. My parents won't allow me to fail. My friends don't allow me to fail. And I'm saying, well, this is your lucky day because now you're in a place where you can push your potential to the very limit and find out where that frontier is in a completely safe environment. And I'll never forget when she graduated, she came to me and she said, that one lesson that I could push myself to a frontier where I could find out where my failure limits really are was probably one of the most valuable lessons I learned at Notre Dame.
That's terrific. That's a rite of passage, right? And to be able to build that into the college experience through program and innovation is truly a gift. So you're located right across the street on Angela Boulevard, across from the Compton Family Ice Arena and across from the new track stadium and all of that. You have two buildings, the opportunity to build more on that footprint there, which I know is very much in the plans. In the space, tell us how that space is occupied, and specifically, I'd like you to talk about the fabrication room and how that's used.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So we do have a number of programmatic spaces inside the Idea Center that we use. So we have an innovation lab, which is a complete maker space, right? We have reductive, we have additive printing, we have reductive manufacturing, we've got laser printers, laser cutters. We also have a full woodworking shop, and we've now got our 50th company engaged working in that space to do prototyping, proof of concepts, building out new companies, engaging students in that as well. When I gave you the quote from Dail, that's what he was talking about. He had gone through the lab and done that work. But we have co-working space, places where teams can get together and work. And then we have all of this space for new startups, right? Whether they're new student startups or community startups, that the companies can actually set up their operations and build and grow and expand their footprint. And even through COVID,
how many startup companies or some existing companies that have a startup venture? How many are located in your two buildings now?
We have 69 companies located in our two buildings right now, all startups and all growing, right? So anywhere from 1 to 30 or 40 people in those startups right now. And by the way, even through COVID, we've been completely full and we have a waiting list. That's why we're excited about building the next buildings, is we think we have additional ability to expand that capacity.
So if I'm an entrepreneur, or if I'm a part of in a corporate environment where we have an entrepreneurial wing, and we wanted to take advantage of the ecosystem at Notre Dame and to tap into some of the intellectual property from our faculty and students, how do I go about that? Could I locate? Could I find ultimately some space to work and to set up hang a shingle?
Yeah, absolutely.
How would I do?
Yeah, so even just getting in touch with us, let me tell you one of the things that we've just started doing, Lou, that I think you'll find really interesting. We found that there are a number of companies that would really like to learn how to innovate the way that we do. They've come to us and they've said, hey, can you teach us how you innovate? Because we're very process driven through that innovation experience. And so what we've done is now we're starting to work with companies on their next technologies and joint venture with them to start new companies around those technologies. And then what they'll do is they'll locate a team in the Idea Center, take a little bit of space, work with our team, work with the students, and actually move that new innovation and discovery toward the marketplace. And then we'll co-invest together and we'll build it out together. This has been really great because it's allowed us to do everything simultaneously. We've been able to work with faculty on the new intellectual property, work with students on the project, work with companies on their ideas, get them into space, invest together. It's been really exciting, some of these new programs we've been able to do.
Terrific. The fabrication room, is that what you call it? You don't call it the fabrication room. You call it the
Innovation Labs.
Innovation Labs.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Wow, I'd say I would invite everyone listening to this podcast to come and see it.
Yeah.
It's a space where we've got design. It's very innovative workspace where they've built all of their cubicle spaces. Students are in there working, and then we have things like laser printers and laser cutters and device
3D,
manufacturing and
3D printers.
workspaces.
Yeah.
It's
3D
just
printers as well, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Fantastic. So tell you've started this new program, the Idea Center Fellows. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what is your vision for that going forward?
I really appreciate you asking this, Lou. I think that we've been talking since the start of this interview about impact. One of the real challenges in innovation and entrepreneurship is that we all know that innovation entrepreneurship is probably the best wealth creating mechanism known to mankind.
Hmm.
The problem is that it's not very equitably available to everybody. And so what happens is you get this distribution where privileged uh, folks like all of us get access to these things, and we're able to create this wealth that benefits our families, and in many cases is generational.
Hmm.
There's a whole group of people that is not participating in this right now. You think about underrepresented minorities, even women, to a large extent. If you look at venture capital right now, women are dramatically underrepresented in new company formation, and underrepresented minorities are almost non-existent.
Right.
The Idea Center looks at this and says, if we're going to really have the impact that Notre Dame wants to have, if we're going to transform local communities, this has to be inclusive. We've got to figure out a way to get all of our people engaged. We have to figure out how to get women engaged, how to get underrepresented Black, Brown entrepreneurs engaged, and how to make this accessible.
Hmm.
And look, there are a lot of things that we can do at a macro level, but one of the things that we've realized is that we need to be in this for the long game. We need to be in this for the next 10 to 20 years, and we need to transform the way this happens. And so we've created a plan and a project where we're going to bring in underrepresented minorities, Black, Brown entrepreneurs from our local community, collaborating with the high schools,
Hmm.
and bring them in as Idea Center fellows, where they will pick and choose those kids from the high schools. We'll give them entrance into Notre Dame. We'll give them a scholarship so that they can come and study here. They will be an Idea Center fellow. We'll get them immediately engaged in a project. It could be their own or someone else's, where they learn how to create companies. They learn how to build wealth. They learn how to create value that we think will then transform their trajectories, which will then allow them to transform their children's trajectories and their grandchildren's trajectories, and ultimately our community's trajectories. And that one day, 10, 20 years down the road, we'll look back and say, Notre Dame had a trajectory changing influence
Hmm.
in this community.
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to do. And I think that that's a story of hope. I think that's a story of opportunity, and one of really creating self-reliance and real value for their
So
families.
what is the scale? I mean, how large would you like to see this fellows program become and what do you need to make it successful?
Yeah, so we're going to start with 2 kids this year, starting in the fall. And then what I would like to do is I'd like to work that back from every grade from 12 to kindergarten, so
Hmm.
that eventually we're starting in grade K, working all through grade 12 to make sure these kids get everything they need to be successful at Notre Dame. So I can see us going from 2 kids to 40 or 50 kids
Hmm.
by the next 10 years or so. And then hopefully we can scale it from there, right? To where we could get this up to 100 kids, and we could touch every high school in South Bend. And what we need is we need people who care about this issue to
Hmm.
step up with us and with Notre Dame and with the folks that are in these high schools and say, hey, I'm willing to fund a kid. I'm
Hmm.
willing to take a kid and move them through from the start all the way through to the end of Notre Dame and really change the transformative trajectory of what these kids can do.
And Notre Dame students, and especially many of them coming from low socioeconomic backgrounds and traditional underrepresented groups, would they serve as mentors for these high school
Exactly.
and grade school kids? Yeah,
That's exactly right. So once you get this started, you can see again this flywheel effect, right? The first ones become mentors to the next ones, become mentors all the way down. Then we start to really penetrate into the high schools. These kids start to be, look, they're real role models, is what they become for all these other kids. I mean, because then you get all of these other Black, brown entrepreneurs who look up or kids and say, "I could be that. I could do that."
yeah. So what do you need financially? I'm ultimately a fundraiser. So what does this cost to run this program well?
You know what? I've gotten all of the resources in the community lined up. I just need $70,000 a kid to put them through Notre Dame
And the 70,000 covers them per year. Is
per
that correct?
year. That's exactly right. Yep. It's just a full freight. What I need are people who want to back the scholarships for these kids.
Got it.
And,
Okay.
and if I can take care of that on the Notre Dame side, I've got all the commitments all the way up from kindergarten to the point that they get into Notre Dame.
Fantastic. Um, what what other exciting ideas do you have? I have two final questions for you. But any other components of your vision to take the idea center to the next level that we should know?
Yeah, I'll just say one more right now, and that's the international vision, Lou. You know, we talk a lot about transforming this local economy here in South Bend, Elkhart, and that'll be huge.
Hmm.
But if you think about Notre Dame's reach, I mean, in a place that's dramatically important to you, Sao Paulo, right? I mean, I was just there last year. There's a whole community there that we could help transform. We could help them get on a different trajectory in terms of poverty reduction, wealth creation, student education, all of these things. We have such a strong international presence. Notre Dame International is so impressive. Why wouldn't we incorporate all of the things that we're doing here in all of those different areas where we have reach in the world? If we can do this in South Bend, Elkhart, why can't we do it in Brownsville or Mumbai or wherever, right? We ought to be able to have that impact. We ought to be thinking at a scale that is truly world transformative in terms of what we're doing at Notre Dame.
Terrific. This is the season of Advent, a season where we long and we hope for the coming of Christ. There's a lot of despair in our country and our world today with pandemic, with growing poverty rates, with a fractious political environment, from both sides. Any final words of hope that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, wow, what a great way to end this. I'm here because of my own testimony of Christ, right? I mean, my faith is such an important component of who I am and what I want to accomplish, that I want to be connected to a place that feels the same way. And, if you think about this difficult year that we've just gone through, any place that can hold out that hope in Christ, his return, his governance, all of those things that can fix us as people and as a society. What a great beacon. I got to tell you, Lou, I was tremendously moved and excited and motivated by Notre Dame's willingness to push forward during this very difficult time, to be the university that kept this hope alive, right? I'll tell you a quick story of a student, underrepresented minority student, who came to me and said, whatever extent you can influence the university's decision to keep the university open, please do so. He said, you need to understand that I don't have any place to go. He says, if I go home, I got nothing there. I have nothing to help me continue to progress and move forward. I need Notre Dame to do what it's doing. And I thought, that point of hope that we could provide for students that said, we're willing to do the tough things, not because they're easy, but because they're hard, to quote JFK, right? There's very few organizations today willing to do the hard things because they're hard.
Mm-hmm.
And why not us? Why wouldn't we? That's the point. That's why we're here. Otherwise, we're just another university with religion in our charter,
Mm-hmm.
right? We want to be faith in our character. We want to move forward and do the right things because they're hard, because they're the right things. I'm incredibly motivated by this university and what it's chosen to do over this last semester. I think there are hundreds, if not thousands, of universities looking to us saying, okay, that's how you do it. I want to do what they did. good on Notre Dame. I am so proud to be part of this organization for that.
Thank you, Bryan. What a beautiful note to end on, and that does fill everyone with a spirit of hope and a sense of mission that we need to carry forward to a world that is deeply in need on so many different levels. Thank you for the great work that you do. We're really blessed by your leadership. I can't even imagine 10 years from now what the Idea Center is going to look like. I think it's going to be integral to the formation and education of the vast majority of our students, and I think it's going to be having impact on people's far from here and in ways that we can't even begin to imagine today. So thank you for your leadership and dynamism and vision and all the people that you work with at the Idea Center. We will not be coming back together again until January 6th, the Wednesday at noon. We will join you after this Christmas break, and Professor Wendy Angst will be the person that we will interview that day from the Mendoza College of Business, an incredibly talented and very dynamic professor. You're going to want to hear that. But in the meantime, we want to offer our Christmas blessings on each and every one of you and the members of your family. Thank you for all that you do for Notre Dame, and thank you for keeping hope alive for so many people in your communities and beyond. As we always close, we will do so again today together with a prayer to Our Lady. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen.
Take care. God bless. Go Irish, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks again, Bryan.